book. And we're going to take this little journey. It's kind of interesting. I had mentioned my grandfather earlier, and he was a very interesting character because he was really super religious, right? Orthodox, but a little bit funny. There was something about him that wasn't quite the way everybody else was. I didn't find out until later that he followed some guy called the Baal Shem Tov, and this is the guy that started Hasidism and all this stuff. I didn't have any idea about this, right? So, but I'll give you an example of the way this was. One day, and I was probably 5, maybe 6. My grandfather decides that the Lone Ranger is a Kal-El. It's a Kal-El, Kal-El. So I hear that, it's like, whoa, does that name word mean anything to anybody, Kal-El? Is there anybody in the audience that knows it? It means vessel of God. Who said that? There he is. Okay, so the Superman comic books were written by these 2 Jewish guys. And they had a planet called Krypton, and on Krypton, Superman's family lived there, and Superman's name was Kal-El on Krypton. That's why when my grandfather said that, but my grandfather, this is where he was, okay? This is what his view was. His view was that God, okay, my grandfather was born before electricity. There was no radio, there was no television, there were no movies. All these things happened in his lifetime. So in his, cosmology, if you want to call it that, God was creating all these things to try to teach humanity all the lessons and to bring them closer. So he had the Torah, and he had the Kabbalah, and he had all this stuff, but God's a tricky guy, and he's starting to play with all these other things. This is my grandfather, right? So the Lone Ranger is a Kal-El. So what does that mean? That means whenever we had a family party or anything was happening and the Lone Ranger was on, everything stopped. Only if it was the high holidays or Passover. Other than that, stopped. Birthday party, whatever. The Lone Ranger's on. Has to stop. He's there watching it like this. A lot of times I'm sitting with him. It ends, and he turns around and gives a Torah portion about what it really was and what it meant and everything like that. So for me, I'm learning all the, I'm very religious brought up, and I'm a kid, so I'm learning all these things. And, the Jewish prayer is always, every prayer almost always ends with, Vayimaru, Amen. Now I got that mixed in with, Hayo Silva! And I'm like, this is kind of the way it happened.